One day, after what looked like a career-ending collapse, he rode the single greatest mountain stage anyone had seen in years, clawing back nearly 8 minutes to save his Tour de France title. It was one of the most inspiring comebacks in cycling history until his own blood samples said otherwise. July 2006. American rider Floyd Landis, riding for the Phonak team, is the overall race leader heading into stage 16 of the Tour de France until he suffers a dramatic collapse, losing nearly 10 minutes and dropping to 11th place overall. His title defense looks finished with 5 stages still to go. The next day, Landis does something almost no one in the modern era of the sport had managed. He attacks alone early on stage 17 and holds off the entire chasing field across multiple mountain climbs to win the stage by nearly 6 minutes. One of the greatest single-day comebacks in Tour de France history, catapulting him back into serious contention. Days after Landis wins the overall Tour title, news breaks that his post-stage 17 sample tested positive for an abnormal testosterone to epitestosterone ratio, nearly 5 times the allowable threshold, the exact stage that had just made him a national hero days earlier. Unlike many athletes caught doping, Landis doesn't quietly accept a suspension. He mounts an aggressive, expensive, and very public defense, appearing on television, writing a book, and challenging the science of the testing itself, insisting for nearly 4 years that he is completely innocent and the victim of a flawed lab process. He takes his case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, loses, and is stripped of his 2006 Tour title in 2007, becoming the first winner in Tour de France history to be disqualified specifically for doping, with the title left officially unawarded rather than handed to the runner-up. Then, in May 2010, Landis abruptly reverses course, sending emails to cycling and anti-doping officials admitting he had, in fact, doped throughout his career, using EPO, testosterone patches, and blood transfusions. He doesn't stop at his own confession. He names names implicating some of the biggest figures in the sport, including his former teammate, Lance Armstrong. Landis's confession becomes the spark that ignites the federal investigation into Lance Armstrong's U.S. Postal Service team, the case that would eventually bring down cycling's most famous champion just 2 years later. Landis, once cycling's most defiant denier, becomes one of the sport's most consequential whistleblowers almost by accident. The reversal costs him what remained of his public credibility in the short term. He'd spent nearly $2 million on his legal defense and years insisting he was clean. But it also positions him at the center of the sport's broader reckoning with doping that follows over the next several years. Landis files a federal whistleblower lawsuit against Armstrong under the False Claims Act, arguing that Armstrong's team defrauded the U.S. Postal Service sponsor by denying doping while accepting sponsorship funds. In 2018, that lawsuit results in Armstrong agreeing to pay $5 million to settle the case, with Landis receiving a share of the settlement for bringing the case forward. To this day, no rider has ever officially been awarded the 2006 Tour de France title. The race organizers simply list it as vacant, a rare instance where the sport chose to leave a permanent, visible gap rather than quietly hand the trophy to whoever finished second. Landis's case, alongside Festina and Armstrong's own downfall years later, becomes part of the evidence base that pushes cycling toward the biological passport system, tracking an athlete's blood values over years rather than relying on single sample snapshots that a well-timed doping cycle could dodge. The full case file, the greatest comeback stage in Tour history, the confession that named Armstrong, and the title that's never been awarded since is linked below. New files unlock every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.